I can't remember her name, but I do have her on Facebook. I got lots of people. So my name is Jessica Waller, but now married, and so I'm Jessica Faust. So I was at Cheer Express from 2001 to 2003. Yeah, so I started my cheerleading career, well, I started watching it when my brother played football, and he's about 7 years older than I am. And I watched all the cheerleaders, and I wanted to do that too. So I went to all the little cheerleading camps and did that growing up. And then when middle school came around, I tried out for the middle school team and, you know, did some of the performances there. So that was fun, and that's what got me really interested. And then in high school, I joined the high school team for my freshman and sophomore year. And then the sophomore year, I didn't actually make it, which broke my heart because it was really my everything. And there was some politics as that kind of happens. And so one of the girls that I didn't make it with, she actually had joined Cheer Express. So she said, hey, why don't you come and do this with me? And so I came and gave it a try and fell in love. And it really became my passion for the next 4 to 6 years.
My name is Elise Brock, and I was with Cheer Express from 1998 to 2001. So I started cheerleading because I didn't make the soccer team on a really competitive high school that I just started. And so I just kind of got thrown into it at high school and was pretty good at it. And I needed something to do to keep me active and be involved in school.
We were at All-American Gymnastics, and we were renting space, and it's around 97. We were outgrowing the space that we were renting, and the owner of the gymnastics facility was like, hey, you're great for our program, but your program is not great for our gym.
The owner, his name is Ray Overman, okay? I think he saw something in your father. He saw his attitude, his you know, his go for it. You know, he saw what he saw something that was in him that most people see it in Angelo, that just makes them feel comfortable. They just see this spirit in Angelo that I think we all slightly adopt, whether it's on different levels. But it's the thing that makes parents just fall in love with what he does for their kids. And when Ray Overman gave him the keys and told him, hey, you go and run, I believe your dad, after a while, thought that, man, I could do this myself. Why work for someone when I can actually do this myself, because I feel like I have the passion. This is something I want to do. This is something where it doesn't feel like a job to me. This doesn't feel like a job to me.
We decided to, you know, find our own space. So we moved the entire program to St. Charles. Then we really jumped into radio ads. I think we had one of the more popular radio ads at the time. It was kind of weird that, you know, a tumbling and cheerleading program was doing this, and I didn't know any better. I just bought a packet of radio ads that they were discounting, and it went like wildfire. Then all of a sudden, I've got 20, 30 kids in for a class. I'm hiring people, and you know, we were off to the races.
So how I heard about Cheer Express is they had an advertisement on the radio, and so I called them up without my parents knowing and told them that I wanted to try out, and I thought that I would be good for his team. And so I went there thinking that I was really, really good. And when I got there, I remember being a little bit nervous and trying out for him. And he was like, well, you're all right, but you need some work. And he's like, I'll call you back and let you know.
When Elise first came into the door, I think it was mid-season or towards the it was kind of mid-season. We had already kind of had things established, but she was a firecracker. She knew that she was good and capable, but I think there were other things that were going on in her life. There was always seemed to be a distraction, whether it be friends, people that she didn't necessarily need to be hanging around with, but there were other distractions. And once she came into the program, I remember specifically how I felt about her as a person. And I felt like it was somebody that I needed to kind of wrap up and give her a hug and let her know that it's okay to be you.
So that was my first, being just really, really nervous, because that was the first time that I had seen cheerleaders at a higher level of being more of an athlete instead of just at the level of like high school cheerleading.
So 2001,
Yep.
you follow your friend to the gym.
Yeah.
What was it about the environment that made you want to stay?
So I loved the camaraderie that was in the environment. Shortly after I joined, we went to South Padre Island.
Probably the biggest like bonding experience we had was when we went to South Padre Island. And that was an awesome competition.
We were at an age to where, you know, we knew how to have fun. Like, we were 16, maybe 17 years old, so it was going to be more of a just a fun experience for all of us together. So I do remember that going into it.
Just to be stunting in the sand. And I remember like our hotel, there was like a grassy field next to it, and I was doing our routine over and over again just to practice, and that was just so much fun, and sharing rooms with the girls. We went to Opryland the one year, and I think there was like 5 of us girls in one room, and I think like at least 4 of us slept in the bed together. Like, those are things, you know, that you don't get back.
Which was a totally amazing experience from somebody at that point in time who never traveled. To go out on my own, my parents didn't go, and go with a big group of friends and just go out there and give it our all and go into the beach. I mean, just it was this totally different experience where you kind of grow up a little bit. And so going to South Padre Island and then coming back as, you know, what I thought was more of an adult, and you go through those experiences with this group of people. That's kind of what started me going into it.
It was a blast. I had a lot of great memories from that trip. And
You said you got your first tattoo there?
I got my second. I got my first tattoo that Angelo and Mickey knew of. My very first tattoo, they didn't even know I got. It was smaller, but
Is it covered up now?
No, I still have it. It's on my right arm.
Oh, okay.
But the very first one I got, actually was kind of cool. Mickey actually allowed me to get it. She actually paid for it me too. I think it was my birthday.
Now, I know about the tattoo. I know about those things, but it was one of those things to where I'm not gonna see everything. But when I found out, I had to chuckle about it. You know, at that point, they're all just at the cusp of being adults. They can't really go to college. I had tattoos. I paid for his very, very first tattoo. Because we had already been in business since like 97, it didn't faze me. I mean, we were taking week-long trips right after Christmas to Opryland with, 2 busloads of kids with only a handful of parents at the time. I was just prepared. I just knew what I had to do, and I wasn't worried about the attitude of the kids because they had my respect. I had their respect. I don't think that anybody would try anything outrageous and dangerous because they knew the type of person I was. I was the coach that was up in the middle of the night walking down the hallways checking to see if anybody was there.
And then what I think kept me there was Angelo called me out on my crap. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to, people saying, okay, you're bossy, or, oh, you've got this going on or that going on, or I just don't want to listen to you. And instead he'd be like, you're not doing that.
But I would say the people that stood out quite a bit that I connected to, not necessarily just from a gym standpoint, from a personal standpoint, with someone like Jessica Waller. She was a challenge simply because she was headstrong, and she she wanted to be a part of something bigger than herself, but I think her experience with her high school cheer kind of knocked her down a couple of pegs, and I think she had a chip on her shoulder at the time, which is fine because that's the athlete that has something to prove all the time. Once I recognize that an athlete understands that they are a part of something bigger than themselves, I give them responsibility to kind of help cultivate the culture and the atmosphere in the gym. And I do those things on purpose. I'll tell them to do things that I know that I could tell the rest of the team, but if I allow this person or this athlete to start to learn how to manage what they say and how they say it, then they become a leader for me, then they become an extension of me.
And you know, and he pushed me too. Like, he saw things in me that I never saw. I never would have imagined, you know, that I'd be able to do a back tuck without even thinking about it. Just a standing back tuck, just because. And he really gave me that confidence and that ability to see things in myself that weren't as negative that other people saw.
Yeah.
I was excited because I had never been on a co-ed team before. So I was excited about that. I guess because Asheed was kind of like the old grandpa. That's kind of how we nicknamed him. That he was always, you know, shaping you or telling you how you could do something a little bit better, or how he just sat back and observed something. You know, he was that wise old owl that you were never self-conscious. You never looked at him different. You know, like, I wouldn't have looked at him as he's a male and I'm a female, and are you okay doing, you know, tumbling and, you know, of your personal space. I would have never looked any different, and I think that's just his personality, that we were just so I mean, we had, all of the guys that we cheered with were that way. They would never step outside of their box. They would never do anything that would make you uncomfortable, and you just felt like they were just one of you, and we were all athletes.
Yeah.
There was one moment, and I want to say it was probably my, I want to say I was in middle school, but I don't know if I was in 6th grade or 7th grade or one of those grades. But anyway, he came to visit me and my mom. And at this point, I was just loving life because I was able to do something I love to do every single day, going to the basketball court, playing basketball every day. I was good. He was like, hey, Asheed, you know, hey, I got this thing going on. I'm doing this cheerleading thing. And I'm like, cheerleading? I just remember when he told me cheerleading, it just came from left field. And I was like, cheerleading? I'm like, what? What is, I don't even know. I know what it is, but I don't know what it is. And he was like, yeah, I'm starting this program. And I think I kind of knew that he had did cheerleading, but it just really never really clicked with me because I was so involved with, you know, sports that you would think, you know, males in general would do. And he was like, you know, I'm starting this team and I don't got no boys, and you'll be good at it, man. I'm telling you, the boys do it, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, nah, man, there's no way I'm going to do that. Like, why would I want to do that? And he's like, well, here. And at this point, he's trying, I could see his little wheel spinning. He's trying to figure out a way to entice me in order to do this, and basically the first thing he was like, hey, and a boy at my age, you can meet girls.
What made you decide as that boy?
Girls.
Okay, but
and he knew that.
But again though,
that is what he told me.
Oh, he said cause you could be around girls.
He said, hey man, and at that point I was impressionable, right? So I was 12, 13-year-old boy. But at that point, I had already spent 2-3 years in the hood around the other boys that may have dads or cousins or uncles at home that are all probably ghetto as hell too. So I was growing up to be like them. So he winds up, which was a blessing for me personally, but kind of jumping ahead a little bit, he winds up talking to my mother into allowing me to move with him, and his wife and you. And this was just to make it easier on my mother because my brother understood where we all came from. And he understood that having a male role model in my life would be very, very obviously important at that point in my life. So I think for him, it wasn't really just about the cheerleading thing. I think he was thinking more about, I know my brother is starting to become a young man, and I see that he's starting to create relationships with other young men like me, but just might not have the best influences on me as well. I think he knew that. At the same time, he also knew that he probably saw something in me that might like cheerleading. So at that point, I don't know, it just felt right. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Let's go do it.
When we decided to do cheer, he was already involved when he moved in. So it was that part was pretty easy. But he eventually became my right hand man. I mean, it was just pretty much, I mean, put it like this, when he went to college, I felt like I lost my right arm because I relied on him so much for a lot of the things. Anything that I was lacking as a coach, or if I couldn't see it, he saw those details and he worked on those details. So we were able to really be very complimentary of each other.
I was still in middle school at the time. So when I moved with your parents, I was still going to the same middle school I was going to in Rockwood Valley. I was going to Rockwood Valley out in Chesterfield. Once I started cheerleading, I started to slowly tell people what I was doing, but I would only tell people if it came up. When I would hear other girls, it was only girls, I didn't hear a lot of boys, but when I heard girls talking about it in middle school, yeah, I'm a cheerleader, I do this, blah, blah, I was like, yeah. I was like, I cheer too. And they were like, what? You a cheerleader? You a boy? I was like, yeah. And they thought it was cool as hell.
Maybe trying to do it there too.
With my coach also being my oldest brother, there was really never a moment where I didn't think that he couldn't coach. You know what I'm saying? This is your older brother.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? It's like I'm just gonna trust anything that you had to say. Why would you not? Why would you like? That was never even thought in my brain that he didn't know what he was doing, or that he wasn't good at what he was doing. That was never a thought in my brain.
I can see that comparison between Kobe and Jordan. You know, Kobe was strategic and very focused on where he was going to attack. Towards Jordan could see the whole thing and compete the whole thing at the exact same time without really having to focus on one specific thing. And that's kind of how I feel like I am. I can see all points, towards Asheed was able to completely focus in on one specific thing and drill that.
No, so Asheed and I don't know what Asheed thinks, but I consider him to be one of my best friends in high school. I just always adored Asheed. You know, I know that Asheed growing up didn't have a lot of people around him. He kind of kept to himself.
Jessica, I always had a close relationship with her just because we went to the same high school. It was really cool in order to have the opportunity to go to high school, because growing up, I never really had a lot of close friends.
Thinking about that and how he was previously, and then thinking about him like when we went to college together and we're cheering together, two completely different people. He truly came out of his shell and became super confident and became healthy and just really started caring for himself. And when you care for yourself, you can care for other people. And you could definitely see that with Asheed. You know, it actually was probably a little bit of time that I was in Cheer Express before I actually realized that Angelo and Asheed I knew they were brothers, but I guess I hadn't really thought about the fact that like Asheed was living there. And you know, I knew a little bit about the dynamics of the family and just how things had gone. And it was so interesting to me what a great leader that I think Asheed became a lot because of Angelo.
You know, we all grew up under you. I never knew life without you in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, as I came to, you were in the other room. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like, oh, that's my uncle. That's my deadbeat uncle, the drunk uncle.
Right.
No, that's like the big brother / cousin / uncle / friend / this. So from our perspective, it was, you know, very natural. It was very normal. But what was it like to grow up with and influence your nieces and nephews in and out of the sport of cheer?
It was special for me, like, and it was inspirational. I'm someone that I live off inspiring, not just myself, but inspiring others. And I feel like that's just naturally in me, but I feel a lot of that did come from Angelo.
Alright, up next we got Nick. He has done cheer his whole life, and literally he is a multi-athlete, and he is probably my favorite sibling out of all of them.
Out of all the kids, I felt like you were the one that, I'm not gonna say that you weren't 100% engaged in the cheerleading. I just felt like you had interest in more other sports than cheerleading than the others did, which is why my earliest memories with you weren't even with cheerleading. It was with football.
Right.
And then later on in high school, it became a lot with basketball and football as well too. But I just felt like you were actually, even though you were the first kid, I felt like you really didn't take onto cheerleading until later on when you got older, because I felt like you had a passion more for other sports than cheerleading. Again, not saying you didn't like cheerleading, I just felt like there was other things that you wanted to do personally, which was one of the things I loved, because Angelo and Mickey never forced you guys to do cheerleading. They always allowed you guys to do what you wanted to do. And that's a perfect example of you being the youngest and you decided that you wanted to do football first. And you excelled at it. And your parents supported you 100%.
We're all there.
Everybody was there. The whole family, everybody, always. We never missed it. Especially, I felt like that made your dad proudest because of the fact that he was also a great football player himself. So, but later on, I felt like you kind of embraced it more, but you actually wound up taking more of the dance route, other than the cheerleading route. So, but I felt like you took more like a fish to water with the dance more than some of the others did with the cheerleading.
June 5th, 94. Nick was born, and it was a proud moment for me. As a dad, I think the first thought I had was, me and you gonna take the world on together. And he was gonna be my ride or die. And it was just a real great moment for me as an individual. For anybody that's ever had a child that is cerebral, who's focused and intense, you'll understand when I say that you know that kid's gonna be okay, no matter what is going on. And I've learned a lot being his father, and I never really had a whole lot of really strong friendships outside of my close-knit friends, but Nick is in my inner 1, 2, and 3 every single year for the rest of my life, and I don't know how to put into words what that means to me. After Nick started to learn how to be his own man in his own space, it was clear that, I was looking at a champion. No matter what area he was going to go into, I was looking at a champion.
You want to introduce yourself?
Nick Graves, General Manager at Silent Fury, filmmaker, third-year filmmaker. Just trying to make my way in the world.
How did you get into cheer? What pulled you into cheer?
Honestly, it was my uncle. It was my uncle Asheed, because my dad was already doing it. So when I was born, when I was in the gym, we were already doing it, but it didn't really validate my efforts, or my interest didn't peak until I saw my uncle do it. And he was into basketball, into football just as much as regular guy stuff, just like I was. So I knew that it wasn't just a girl's sport at that point. You got my dad coaching, you got my uncle that's, doing, he's 10 years older than me, and then you got my older cousin, he's 2.5 years older than me. And seeing all these guys, and you see guys on the team, I wanted to be like that. I wanted to get my back tucked too. I wanted to do my full too. I wanted to do it. Not because of the sport, really. I think I kind of grew into the technical side of the sport as I got older because we started so young. But I always had a balance. I always had football to go with cheerleading. I think my family just doing it already is what got me into it, but my uncle is what made me actually stay and apply myself. I think my favorite part about cheer is like knowing the background of how the routine came to be about, and then watching people's ideas come from their head, and then bodies are flying and landing on certain times, and just the small nuances of the sport. Like you could be 1 inch off, and it's like most sports, you know, you step out of bounds in basketball, you're 1 inch away from a 3-point to a 2-point, or you're 1 step from a touchdown or no touchdown. It's the same thing with cheerleading, and I think that attention to detail, knowing that I had to pay just as much attention while I'm on the mat as I do if I'm carrying the football or if we're in a play, because everybody's actions count towards the whole outcome of the team's effort. So I think the thing that I like the most is just that small science, that small little nuance that team to team has. Like you could give the same routine to 2 different groups of teams and it'll look 2 different ways based on their chemistry, based on their flow, and those are those small things that when it's planned on paper and then presented and performed to the world, I think that's the cool part.
Mm-hmm. What was it like being in so many extracurricular activities growing up?
I think it was something that allowed me to really understand who I am, right? I think with me being the oldest and me feeling like I have a responsibility to lead the way, I felt the most that I had to try as many things that I felt passionate about. You know, I grew up watching my dad, or hearing about my dad as a good football player. So I wore his football numbers, and I played the same position. I tried to live up to that because I knew he wasn't in the NFL. Like I knew we weren't, you know, coming from that. So I said, okay, well, why not me? So the fact that I had such a strong pull to football at the same time as I was getting that for cheer, it worked because, you know, I understood all perspectives of the game. To answer your question directly, it felt like I was able to release all of the built up questions in my head because I asked a lot of questions a lot as a kid. So if I'm applying myself in football 100%, I'll give 100% of myself. Then I switch clothes and I go to cheer practice. I give 100% of myself at cheer practice. The challenges as you grow into your body, as you grow into your mind, all those questions get answered through the coaches and teammates that you have on both ends. So if you've got one perspective that's strictly like a testosterone built, it's a real hardcore sport as far as like just the roughness of it, and then you've got a more finesse sport with more women involved, that has to be taken a little bit more. You have to take a little bit care with it. That gives me all perspective growing up. So you add that mixed with school and friends and then home life, my plate was full. So I think my mind was able to develop multitasking at an early age.
Describe the pressures of being the oldest in the family, although the oldest among your siblings.
Yeah.
Well, first about me, there are just some things that a movie. Some things you just don't know about. I mean, you gotta ask like a parent.
Take a picture of Nicole with all that popcorn in her mouth.
Okay.
Leo, you're not...
I'm making a story. Like, you know, like on movies.
Being the oldest in general it comes with its own responsibilities, right? It comes with its own sense of it comes with its own sense of the need to be perfect, the need for perfection. At least it does for me. But then our family is different because we are so close, because we all want to see the best out of the other person, because we all have each other's best interests. And I really do believe that we have our each other's best interests when we deal with each other, when we talk about each other, when we help each other, that sort of thing. So knowing that everybody is talented in their own right, knowing how versatile everybody is, knowing what everybody brings to the table, being an observant person, being a thinker, being a planner, being an organizer, being a reader. All of those things play into my daily actions because I know that they have no choice but to look at me. They may not always ask me for advice, they may not always ask me for help, but I know their eyes are wide open to what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what I'm not doing, what I'm not saying, who I'm hanging out with, who I'm not hanging out with. All those things are mental notes that you don't start seeing in your brothers and sisters until it's almost too late, good or bad.
You look official with the headphones on.
Right.
Did you get, those are good. Did you get that YouTube I sent you?
Yeah, I haven't.
You need to watch him and go back and watch his stuff. Remember the guy I told you was like a 23-year-old millionaire because he started a pool cleaning business and then a moving company? He doesn't even work those companies anymore, but he owns them, and then he does that YouTube, and then that YouTube, it was showing how much money he made in the last 30
What had it been like watching your parents open businesses in the past?
Honestly, it was like something it was just like us moving to Texas. It felt like all things are possible, like nothing's off the table. And even if it does seem like a far-fetched dream, even if it does seem like something that most people wouldn't understand, we made a living and, you know, put food on our table from things that people aren't used to. So watching them open businesses and have different streams of income, that was really motivating for me, because again, being the oldest, you get the first dose of everything. You know, you're the first one to really comprehend it. The good thing is that my parents are only 20 years older than me. So in a lot of ways, we grew up together. We still growing into adulthood and, you know, advanced adulthood together. So watching them handle their business, handle home, it really helped me structure my adult life. Because if you're just an aware person and watching a good example from like 10 to 19, 20, you can really plan your adult life to weed out a lot of the, you know, BS. You can really structure a good life for yourself if you've got those sorts of examples. So watching them open businesses, it made me want to just put ideas to paper. It made me start, you know, doing Post-it notes. It made me think about all the ways that I possibly could be here, why I'm here, my purpose. You know, I'm starting to get into film, and that's something that's turning into a real passion for me because of the fearlessness that I saw my parents attack every single day going to their place of business. The fact that I could be in school and tell my friend, like, no, I can't go hang out, you know, I've got to help my dad at the gym. And for them to know what the gym is, with, you know, because I've talked about it so much, or their sister had been there and they'll run into me at the gym, that's a feeling as a kid. It's just like having a famous father or having a famous mother, and knowing that other people know why your family is as good as they are or in the position that they are. And I'm not saying that we're any better than anybody. I just think that example alone with them owning businesses really shaped my fearless attitude towards life.
Nope.
And who are you, young man?
Dallas Graves.
Dallas
You gotta
Graves.
keep this tape.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna
Number
keep this
one,
tape. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be famous one day.
You gonna be famous one day?
Yeah, that will be very valuable.
You're right.
Yep.
Maybe we can put it on YouTube.
All right, now we got Dallas. He's been cheering for 15 years, and he has won Worlds with Prodigy Blacklight 2018 and has been a cheer coach at Woodlands Elite and stopped cheering when he was 20. And now he is a music producer, and now he's pretty cool because I listen to his music a lot, and so, yeah.
So 6 is my earliest memory of tumbling. If I could paint like a picture, Cheer Express I was on a panel mat doing standing backs. And that's like the first skill I've ever learned. And I learned that by watching people. I'm a very visual learner. And in a very confident way in my head, because I never really like was outspoken about my ability until mom and dad like had Viper, and I was constantly throwing skills that like I could just never fall on. But from an early age, I knew like it was gonna be something like really easy for me, like almost too easy to where it's like, okay, I have to try, right? And then there was a period of time where I couldn't, between high school to where we just didn't have the gym. I didn't fiend for the sport, but I always thought like this is my prime shape. You know, from 13 to 15, I didn't cheer. That was my prime. I was in shape, right? I was playing football, basketball, all of that. But not only was I at a small school, but I didn't have the coaching to help me excel at that sport, which I probably could have excelled at those other sports. But as soon as I switched back to cheer, not only did I have like the coaches who were certified enough to like coach me up to being the best I could be, I saw it and I took it.
Dallas, wow, that's like my tornado. There was nothing that was going to stop him from doing what he was going to do. And if you know Dallas, you know he's determined. You can't give him a challenge without expecting some result. Even if you just threw it lightly in the air, he's going to come back with it and probably a little bit more.
Dallas is that athlete that no matter what you ask him to do, he'll do it. He'll try it. And most likely it'll probably take him one to three tries and he'll get it. He may not have been the cleanest or the prettiest, but the kid was fearless. And I feel like in coaching anything, when you have an athlete that's not afraid to do something, they're going to always excel faster than anyone else.
At the end of his career there, he started working on music, doing producing, and he was able to kind of take that energy in a whole nother way. And, unfortunately, he wasn't able to see everybody as who they really were. He got into a situation where he was shot in his knee. And, we were all panicked at the time. We didn't really know what to expect, how that was going to go, what life was going to be like for him. But he got lucky. It went straight through, no damage, except for, to his ego. And he also had to learn how to deal with, everybody around him and decisions and what he had to do in order to grow up a little bit.
Again, this was a sport that we had to be very disciplined in. So at my very least discipline, I was more disciplined than the average person. Because we have to be perfect. Or we're hurting something, or we're hurting somebody else, Even if we weren't coaches at the time, it was our job, right? The same way, like school is our job too, right? But we had a schedule. We got up, went to school, went to the gym, sleep. We got up, went to school, to gym, sleep. For years on end. My childhood was cheerleading, and I guess you could say I missed out on things, but how would I know what I'm missing out on if I'm never there? Which it never really bothered me. Well, first off, we're the best. And it's not something that like it's not something that is obvious in the public. But once you get in our bubble, once you step in where we step, you hear about us and you know. And then even if they don't know me, they know my sister and they know my little brother. If they don't know them, they know dad. You know what I mean? And if you know dad, you know all of us. Because he gonna talk about us. The best part about the cheer industry to me is completing something that I finished. We spend hours, days, weeks, months practicing, being diligent, being disciplined is something that we have to get right in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The majority of the people who compete can't do that, right? And I guess nowadays, I haven't cheered in a couple years, but nowadays teams will water down routines to hit, so people can find a way to hit. But when you start with something and you finish with something that's greater than what you thought it was, and even if you don't win, you completed that season. You completed your mission. It's finishing with the people that you started with, accomplishing a goal of perfection. That's because nobody can see the hours and nobody comes in here. The judges don't come in here every single practice. So you can hit that routine every single time in practice and then not hit it while you compete. Not necessarily saying you failed your mission, but I mean, the most gratifying thing, the best thing in the cheer industry is finishing what you started and knowing that you put everything out on that floor and knowing that nobody can take away your accomplishment whether you win or lose.
Are we rolling?
We are.
Okay.
Rolling, action.
How did you get into cheer?
Oh, my mom wanted me to be a ballerina, actually.
A ballerina?
Yes, a ballerina. She wanted me to go into dance because that's what she did, and do like all the hip hop type stuff, and I couldn't do it. She could tell that I wanted to do something more sport-like, so she tried to get me into like volleyball and all that type of stuff. That didn't work. So she put me into cheer, and I immediately fell in love with that. So.
Okay. How would you describe the Graves family to people who don't know them?
Oh God. Crazy is the first word that pops into my head.
Yeah.
Y'all all have that energy that just makes everybody want to join in. That's why I feel like this gym is going to be so good, because I feel like everybody from different places are going to come in and want to join into this.
What is the best part about cheerleading for you?
The bonding of teammates, which is why we're so close, because we met through cheer.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I'm here, because you're here.
And with you being on midnight our first year and us creating that bond now the year I left, how did you feel that bond on Blacklight on an older team?
With other people?
With other people.
It felt a lot different because they were of course older than me, but there's a wide variety of ages on that team. So everybody was able to connect with each other pretty well, which I thought was going to be harder, but everybody really connected no matter what the age was. We had the youngest person on the team and the oldest people on the team hanging out at the same party together, you know?
Let's get into a this or that.
Okay.
Tumbling or
stunting? Stunting for sure.
Now
Tumbling.
why stunning?
Because tumbling hurts. Because I'm a flyer and I like to perform and be in the air, and I just don't like to tumble.
Well, you used to tumble and you used to be a really good tumbler from what I remember. I do remember you were injured during the season we won Worlds. How did that affect your tumbling to where now you're preferring stunting over tumbling?
I honestly did prefer tumbling over stunting when I was on midnight the first year. And then after the injury, I stopped tumbling for a while and I never really got back into it. So I kind of lost my Arabian Hooded Double, my Tooted Double, all that type of stuff. So the fact that I don't have the same tumbling as before makes my stunting better. So it makes me want to do stunting more than tumbling.
Alright, well, okay then, since you chose stunning, partner stunts or group stunts?
Oh, that's actually a hard one. I would have to say group stunts because you can do a lot more, but I still really love doing partner stunts because I've been doing it with college level cheerleaders for the longest time, but group stunts definitely you can do a lot more with it.
Jump section or dance section?
Dance for sure. I mean, I love jumps. I'm pretty good at jumps, but dancing is just my thing. It's just something I love to do, so.
Morning practices, afternoon practices, or night practices? Which one do you prefer?
Afternoon practices, because I would say night practices, but I live 2 hours away from the gym.
So it's just a long drive.
And I'm not a morning person, so we do not do morning practices here. I have always lived pretty far away from the gym, but the least, like, I probably lived from 30 minutes to 3 hours away, because when I was at cheerleaders, I drove 3 hours. But it's just, I have so much determination and commitment to the team that I'm always on, and so just.
Have you ever played any other sports?
I played volleyball, basketball, I ran track, I did everything in.
So did you see the same level of commitment in those other sports too? What do you think makes cheer different? Because I see that with a lot of cheerleaders, you know, they tend to be a little bit more committed, they're willing to do a little bit more for their team. What do you think is the difference?
Yeah, it's really the bond of all my friends. I didn't have that same bond as the people on my volleyball, basketball, track team because it wasn't like a team, like it was team sport, but cheer is just so bonded and close that it just makes me want to go to every single practice.
How have you guys been taken to Kennedy and Kylie, coaches in particular? Because they're a branch off from my dad. And Kennedy has a little bit more experience coaching alongside my dad, but what have been your impressions of seeing Kennedy and Kylie, Coach Kennedy and Kylie, work together?
They work great together. Yeah, they do, yeah. And I like how they know how to separate, okay, when you take care of this, because this is their needs, they need something different, I'll take care of that, and then they come back together, and it still looks like one. It doesn't look like they practice in two different groups. I think they work well.
They do a good job of adapting to the girls' needs too. If they see something that's not working well, they go back to the drawing board and make sure that we can hit whatever they're trying to hit.
So for me, safety is a huge concern because I don't think you can have, the girls can't have confidence in the skills that they're building on, and stunting is very much like you have to build on each, level. And I feel confident in them and their ability to do the stunts, to know what the stunts are, to know what the tumbling is. They do it themselves, and so that they can teach it, because that was an issue for me before. I'm like, seeing safety issues happening, and it's like, okay, let's build on it. No, we don't even have, we need the foundation. And so, I feel really confident seeing the stunts that they're already building on, and they know, they can tell them hand placement and feet and all the things that you have to know. So
last question.
Why are you smiling?
Last question.
What?
Kennedy or Roman?
Kennedy.
Why?
I've known you for so much longer. What are you talking about?
Okay, well.
Did you come up with that question?
No. That was number 6. I told you, number 6. Okay, so other than just knowing me longer, why me? If you could.
Because we laugh about anything and everything, no matter what we're doing.
Yes.
It's just. Oh God, no, I can't.
Seriously.
No, because every time we're at practice, we levitate towards each other. I don't know how, but we always end up in the same spot.
Well, I think it's also because we don't want to talk to anybody else.
I'm just forget about everybody else. I'm gonna go talk to her. Bye.
You'll be on one end of the floor trying to do something, and then I'm on the other end, and we're just we'll just meet in the middle.
Yeah.
But I'm flattered. Trust me, I really appreciate it. You're my favorite out of your family, even though they're my family too. So yeah, we're besties.
Yeah, since day one.